Total War Troy mythical creatures. Basically, men, women, and some horses. These are unique units with special abilities or roles on the battlefield, and they are very limited. We're going to take a look at all the available mythical creatures, or units. We'll also take a look at their stats and talk about what their role may be on the battlefield. We begin with Giant Vanguard. These big fellas don't really care too much for defense with little armor or melee defense, but they have had the good sense to bring a shield, and they can do a good amount of damage. Not only with their high weapon damage, which has a bonus versus large, but they're also a charger, so they'll do well charging into their enemies. They cause fear, which will reduce the morale of enemy units, and they have Vanguard deployment if you want to try any cheeky flanks. Overall, a strong choice for taking down those chariots and anything large with their anti-large bonus. They will put the hurt on it quickly. Then we have Armored Giant Spearmen, kinda similar to the previous unit, a bit tougher though, with more health, more armor and more melee defense, a little bit less damage but still nice and high, got that bonus versus large again. They also come with an armor piercing missile attack, so a little bit more of a versatile unit all round. They do cause fear again, but they don't have Vanguard deployment like the previous unit. But all of these giant units actually are pretty damn fast at 52 speed. They can run incredibly quick for big fellas, so strong choices for a flanking attack. Overall though, good anti-large for taking out chariots and cavs, but can take on infantry just as well. Now to the damage dealer of the bunch, the Giant Champions. They are superior to the previous two units in almost every way. Lots more armor, tons of melee attack, tons of weapon damage, 384 which is armor piercing and anti-large, massive charge bonus. But as with most damage dealer units, they have pretty low melee defense, so not going to be the toughest unit in the world. They're not going to last forever, but they will do a lot of damage while they are alive. They also cause fear to reduce that nearby enemy morale, and they have Encourage, which will increase nearby friendly morale, so it can help keep your troops fighting for longer. A good choice to mix in with the front line and to go for those elite dangerous units. And on to the last giant of the bunch, the Giant Bowman. These chaps aren't really up to much in melee, they still have decent weapon damage though. Their strength of course is their missile attack, which isn't armor piercing but does do a nice bit of damage with some decent range. But coupling this with their pretty fast speed at 50, they could be a nice option to flank around on the enemy to try and shoot them in the back to avoid all the shields that are going to be around in Troy. Now on to some non-giants with the Spartoi, or however the hell you pronounce that. These boys have some pretty good combat stats, nice melee attack, decent weapon damage, which is bonus versus large, nice charge bonus, good melee defense, overall pretty good stats. Their strength though is in their abilities. They are unbreakable first of all, so they will not rout and run away, they will fight to the very last man. They also have improved flanking attacks, which will increase their bonuses when attacking a unit in the side or back, so they're really designed to be a flanker. One little downside to them though is that they can go into rampage, which means you'll lose control of them and they'll just run around and do whatever they want, attacking whichever enemy they please, which may be a bad matchup for them. On now to the Mantis, another unit I've probably pronounced wrong. This unit has nice stats all across the board, decent speed, melee attack, lots of melee defense, reasonable weapon damage with bonuses against axemen, swordsmen and large, and a little bit of a charge bonus. Again though, their strength is in their abilities. They can go into a shield wall formation, increasing their missile block chance, melee defense, and just becoming an impenetrable wall. They also have flanking defense improved, so if somebody flanks them from the side or back, they won't gain any extra bonuses against this unit, so it's a debuff to the enemy essentially. They also are unbreakable, so they won't rout and run away. They are immune to psychology, which doesn't really make sense because they can't rout and run away, but whatever. A nice unit for your front line or for defending your flanks from chariots and cav though. Then to some ladies who aren't really dressed for battle, they don't even have shoes on for God's sake, the Sirens. These ladies are absolutely dreadful in melee, as you might expect. They are very much a ranged unit, got some nice range on them, not a great deal of damage though, but they have an ability called Sirens Lure, which will taunt an enemy unit for 45 seconds, making that unit attack the Sirens, which is actually pretty powerful. If you do that on an elite unit and drag it away from the battle for 45 seconds, or put it into a matchup that it doesn't want to be in, that's pretty powerful. Although do make sure you do it on units that are slower than you are, otherwise it may go horribly wrong. Now to some ladies that are a bit more battle ready, the Harpies. They have some pretty decent combat stats all across the board, although low armor and no shield, so they'll need to watch out for missiles. Reasonable melee damage stats, but they do come with a ranged attack which not only reduces enemy morale by 10, but is also armor piercing, so very powerful flanking attack potentially. They're very quick on their feet. They have flanking attacks improved, so they'll do more damage when they flank units. They also have stalk, so they won't be seen until they get close to an enemy. And they have Strider, so they can run up hills without being slowed down or taking any of the combat penalties if they're fighting on hills. So overall, a really nice flanking, sneaky, stealthy unit. If they're not good enough for you though, then you could try Harpy Fiends. These are very much the same unit, just better in every way. They've got a little bit of armor on now as well, improved stats all across the board, still got the missile attack, and a few extra abilities. All the same ones as the previous Harpies, but they also have Snipe, which means they can shoot an enemy and still remain hidden. They have Vanguard deployment, so they can deploy outside of the usual deployment zone, allowing you to set up a cheeky flank perhaps, and they can fire whilst moving. So another very sneaky, flanky ambusher unit, good in melee or at range. On to our first piece of cavalry, the Savage Centaur Warriors. They have the unique ability of being a cavalry, which obviously there aren't a lot of in Troy. They're very quick, they're all about charging damage, they've got a big charge bonus, decent weapon damage. They don't have great melee defense though, so you don't want to leave them in combat for too long. Charge them in for about 15 seconds and then get them out of there, rinse and repeat to keep getting that charge bonus and doing tons of damage. If you want a beefier version of that cavalry, bring the Centaur Champions. Very much the same thing, just better stats everywhere. Nice shield, nice armor, massive charge bonus, lots of damage. Again, not fantastic melee defense. Cycle charge them in, out, in, out. They both cause fear as well, these Centaur units, so that's always useful for bringing the enemy morale down, especially if you can flank behind an enemy and charge them in the back with these cavalries. You'll inflict penalties for attacking a unit from behind, and the fear, it can rout units very quickly. And to our last cavalry, Centaur Elders. These are the skirmish cav of the bunch. They'll do well at charging down archers in melee, like all of these cavs, but not a lot else. They're not going to be great in melee against melee units, as they don't have fantastic stats for it. Where they excel is at range. With their decent missile attack with lots of ammo, they can just kite the crap out of everybody. If somebody tries to chase them, unless it's a very fast cav unit itself, it's not going to be able to catch them, and they'll just be able to blast away at whatever they want. So great for flanking, shooting enemy melee units in the back. Maybe for blasting away at chariots they could be good as well. They can fire whilst moving, fire in all directions, have fear of course, and can Vanguard deploy. Overall though, just a nice skirmish option, and one of the few out there. Now to one of the big single entities, the Minotaur. This boy is all about the melee fight of course, not the toughest in the world though, with fairly low armor and melee defense, but he can still hold his own. Tons of melee attack, absolutely tons of weapon damage, which is armor piercing, a nice charge bonus, so he's going to do just a hell of a lot of damage fighting in crowds basically. Might want to watch out for the elite crowds though, as they may take off his health a little bit too quickly. For his abilities, he causes fear, obviously. He has the Savage Roar ability, which will reduce enemy morale by 30, which is pretty hefty, for 40 seconds as well. And he has Bull Rush, which will trample his enemies, although stop him attacking for a few seconds. Overall, just a big crowd damage dealer, good for supporting your allies. And last but not least, the Cyclops. This fella has a lot of health at 11,000, although lacking severely in the armor at only 10, and not a lot of melee defense. So he seems tough, but also kind of not tough. Either way, he's putting out a lot of weapon damage at 1,396, which is obviously armor piercing, massive charge bonus as well. For his abilities, naturally there's the fear, also Blind Rage, which will increase his melee attack damage, but slightly reduce his melee attack and melee defense. He also has Boulder Toss. He can literally throw a massive boulder across the map into a crowd of enemies. So a nice little AoE attack. Overall, just a big damage dealer, gonna do work on those crowds, can throw that boulder at elite units, maybe take on some other heroes. Just an all-around beast. So there you go. All of the mythical units in Total War Troy. Not all of them are going to be available in all factions. You will have to find which ones your faction can get, but rest assured they should serve you well. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.